Welcome everyone to the Mindset Podcast, where each episode we explore how embracing adversity can lead to positive change. A little over 6 years ago I got sober from alcohol and drug addiction, and what I learnt during that period of time was how the biggest or smallest challenges in my life paved the way for the most positive and enriching period of growth and learning I've ever experienced. FRP is a people-focused firm, both with our excellent teams internally and clients we work with day to day. Like many other professional services firms, we give particular attention to delivering the best advice for people under what can often be extremely stressful situations. So it follows, spending time understanding how we can learn and grow from any periods of adversity we face will also see us evolve and grow as individuals and better serve our clients. This podcast aims to provide inspiration for others trying to progress in their careers, help professionals feel less isolated on their journey, and debunk the myth that we all have to be all right all of the time. Most importantly, we want to walk the walk of change and integrity with the experience of others who have walked the path before us. Challenges can be used for good. I absolutely believe this fact. I hope you enjoy. Thanks for coming. Welcome.
Thanks for inviting me.
Welcome to what we're calling the Mindset Podcast.
Jeez.
How overcoming adversity can lead to positive change is the tagline, and that's what we're sort of calling it and looking at. And yeah, I guess everyone's got their own individual experience. And I think a lot of what we're trying to discuss or what we're getting into is around, the fact that everyone has a journey, of course, and certainly in professional circles, whether that's like the corporate world or the creative world or whatever it is. We often have a tendency to feel like perhaps we're the only ones having those challenges. You know what I mean? And it's like, and from my experience, certainly, sort of being open-minded to the reality of the fact that it's okay to have a challenge. It's okay to voice the journey of that challenge, and actually to learn that that's exactly how I grow and evolve as an individual is like that was a really huge thing for me. So it's just interesting to hear people's different journeys. So if we go back to the start of yours, so do you want to just tell us a bit about where you're from and what got you to London and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so my name's Tash. I originally from Ghana. So I was born in Ghana and I came here when I was about 6 years old. And my dad came to the UK to study originally, and then came back to Ghana, met my mum, and then obviously the rest happened. And then he was trying to convince her to come back to the UK, but she was like, nah, like, why am I going to come to the UK? It's cold. We've got sunshine here. It's cool. Yeah. But she was really into catering. So he was like, if you come, I'm going to show you like how to get into like catering courses and whatnot. So they left me with my grandma, and then she came and she was like, you know what, it's not so bad here. Then they came back and got me. And then, And
how old were you when they got you?
That was a year after, so 7.
7?
Yeah.
Do you remember much about Ghana? The bit before that, no?
A little bit. I know I used to look after like my grand's market store, but that's as far as I remember.
They got you grafting early.
They got me grafting early, man.
So you came over at 7.
Yeah. And
then what's your first kind of memories of being in London, in the UK, and the first time you felt like, do you know what, this is a bit overwhelming, or this is challenging for you in whatever manner?
Well, the first thing I remember is wearing a jacket. I never wore a jacket before because I didn't need to. That was like, oh wow, like I have to wear this jacket and a woolly hat.
Right.
Never ever wore one in my life. So that was the first thing. I think when I went to school, like primary school, that was a big shocker for me.
Right.
Yeah, because I couldn't speak English, so that was a big problem. So I had to learn like English because, and my parents' English weren't so great either.
Right.
So I had to learn quickly. So that was the main thing. So that already made me a bit of an outcast. But yeah, that I would say that was like the main thing.
And when you first, do you remember what you did to try and engage in that? And that might sound like an odd question because you go, well, I learned English, but you're 7 years old, you've come to London. I'm assuming day one you just don't understand what anyone's saying.
No.
And then it's like, so how do you do that? How do you quickly learn at that age to, you know, what was your approach? Do you remember?
So my parents stopped speaking to me in my language. So the language that they spoke was Tree.
Right.
And they stopped speaking to me in Tree at home.
Right.
Because they realised that if they keep doing that, I'm not going to learn English. And there's a particular incident that happened when I was in school when a kid had like a toy that I wanted. And I kept screaming at him, saying in my language, like, give me that toy.
Right.
To the point I said, if you don't give me that toy, I'm going to slap your face in my language.
Yes, yeah.
And like, there was just this tension, but no one was understanding me. So I think I started to realize at that age that like, if I'm going to be able to communicate with these other kids, I'm going to have to learn English. So I just applied myself. I mean, you know, when you're young, you just soak things up quickly anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
But that was the first time that I realized that, oh wow, actually I've gone from like being the majority to now the minority.
And then, so you did that, you worked through school, you learnt English.
Yeah.
And then what were those years like when you were sort of, you know, entering your teens? Like, how was that period for you? Would you say you went through a period of major challenge or change during that time that shaped you now?
Yeah, I think like during my teens, I guess sort of like I was understanding like culturally, like how it is to do things in the UK. So I'd say like some of those things were a bit different. Also as well, I went to like an all-boys secondary school as well. So that was different.
Yeah.
So I weren't really interacting with any like girls and stuff. So I think I was growing up like being quite shy.
Yeah.
Because I came as a minority, I often like spent a lot of time on my own. But because of that, I think I didn't develop enough social skills. And then being in an all-boys school as well, it's like you put a girl in front of me, I just started freaking out. So
yeah,
I had to sort of like work my way through that and try and build my confidence and stuff.
Yeah.
And the secondary school I went to was a rough secondary school as well.
Where was it?
It was in Battersea.
Right.
Yeah, so it was called Salesian College. I mean, it's so bad that they've knocked it down and it's called something else. But it was literally like sat right in the middle of all these estates as well. And I was just this West London boy, now in South London. And like, you got all these gangs around, people are getting robbed all the time. It was a madness. But I don't know, I just had to get through it.
Yeah, you just adapt and survive.
Yeah.
And then, so what did you do? You went through school. Did you go to college and uni, or?
Yeah, went to college, St. Francis Xavier, still in South London. Couldn't get enough of it, clearly. So yeah, I went there, and then I went to university in Buckinghamshire.
And what did you do at uni?
I did graphic design and advertising.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then through that period of time, and of course there doesn't have to be a challenge per se, but what would you say stuck out as the so at that point you go, I'm going to do graphic design, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to go to uni, I'm going to try and pay the way for myself.
Yeah.
So you obviously have a desire to try and succeed in whatever you want to choose, and it's probably going to be at that point the creative industry of some form, because that's why you're doing that. So what do you think was holding you back or blocking you through during that period through up to university? Was there anything in particular around, you know, coming in from another country and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I didn't always see myself as an academic.
Yeah.
So that often hindered me, and I believed that I wasn't smart enough. So while some of my other friends were doing things with maths or science or all of these other things, I thought, you know, I'm the dumb kid, so let me go and do the creative stuff, because I was really good at art and stuff like that. So I went down that route. I wasn't necessarily wanting to do graphic design, but it's when I went to college, I did an art and design BTEC, and my tutor was like, you're really gifted in this area, so why don't you go and do that at uni? I wasn't even going to go to university, funny enough. I didn't even apply. Yeah. But my tutor said, Buckinghamshire are doing interviews, you should go for it. And I said, I ain't even done a UCAS. Even till today, I don't even know what UCAS looks like. Yeah. So I just went for the interview, and then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call, and they said, look, you got an unconditional offer to Buckinghamshire. So I just went.
And how was that?
The experience at uni?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, to be honest, it wasn't the greatest course. It was a new course at the uni, so I felt like we were sort of guinea pigs.
Right.
I enjoyed elements. I think I enjoyed uni more than I enjoyed the course. And in our second year, we had to split. So we had to decide whether we should do advertising or graphic design. I ended up choosing graphic design. I should have chosen advertising. I didn't enjoy graphic design as much. So I ended up doing that, and then got a degree in graphic design. And then I worked for a graphic design agency for a short period of time. But I realized very soon afterwards that sitting behind a screen all day long, designing stuff, it just wasn't making my heart sing.
Right.
I wanted to be around people.
Right.
That's what I wanted. So, yeah. So I think the challenge during that period was just not feeling like I was academic enough to go and do some of the other things. And I think that sort of limited my ability to sort of achieve more during that season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because what you're describing there is, you know, something that we've touched on before, which is the lie, right? So the lie during that period of time for you was that you weren't able, or you weren't as intelligent enough to do X. Yeah. So instead you did Y. Yeah. And then the learning is, well, actually that probably wasn't true at all. Yeah. You know, and that comes back to an element of fear, probably. Oh yeah. Around, and did you go into that experience of college and uni fearful around acceptance, or were you at that point quite comfortable with the world you were in, and you know the UK being a new home and everything else? Yeah, for sure. I think for college, you know, once again I was this West London kid in a South London school, predominantly with people from Brixton and Peckham and all these other areas. So there was a fear in that sense. And then also as well, as I said, I wasn't confident. I was a shy kid. So now I'm in college where there's girls and guys, you know, so it's a whole different world. I remember the first girl that spoke to me asked me where our lesson was, and I was like, it's over there. I was like, I was nervous. Yeah, of course. So I think with those things, I was just, because even if I look back through my college years, there was a common room that everyone went to sit and chill in and have fun. I never really went there because I was always nervous. I was scared to be in that space. So I'd go and hide in the library or go and hide in like one of the other rooms and stuff. And I just did that for most of the time because I think my mind had already told me that you're an outsider and you won't be able to fit in. So I think I just programmed myself to always find a way to just be on the sort of like the outside. So I never really engaged with a lot of people when I was at college. Yeah. And when do you reckon you first recognised, if at all, in fact, you may just be talking from a place of where you are today, but was there a time when you first recognised, hold on, this is a mindset thing, like I'm assuming that I'm an outcast here, I'm assuming X, Y, Z, or I need to start applying myself more, or I need to... Was there a moment, or was it did it just derive from the result of your journey? I think it arrived, from the result of the journey. I don't remember a time where it sort of clicked. I think during uni, it gave me the opportunity to like connect with people, not just from London, but all across the UK. Yeah. And I never had that experience before. And I think slowly that developed, and I just realized that actually there's not much that separates us as people, you know, even if you come from a different country or whatever. At the end of the day, you cut each and every one of us. It's blood that comes out, you know, we're more connected than we are. Than we realize. So yeah, I think over time I just sort of started to realize that actually I'm not that much different. Than my experiences are different, but you know, at the core of each of us, we're all very similar. Yeah. And then, so you went on, and what did you do after you did the graphic design thing? That wasn't making your heart sing, as you said. And then, what did you go on to do? Yeah, so after that, I wasn't working at all, actually. And then a mate of mine was working for H&M, and he was like, "Listen, they're doing like this big recruitment drive thing in central London. There's going to be about 60 people. Just come through. You can just work there for the meantime, just get a bit of money." So I was like, "Yeah, cool." Rocked up. This was in Marble Arch. About 250 people turned up because obviously everyone and their dogs ended up coming. That's crazy. So I was like, well, I'm here now. I'm just gonna, you know, we was in like these little group interview things. There was about 20 of us, and we had to like sort of sell ourselves. And I was like, this is random. But I said, you know what? I'm gonna say something funny. If they remember me, cool. Did it.
ended up getting a job. So I started working H&M, Tottenham Court Road. It was the first store that launched their home department.
Right.
So I was involved in that, and then worked there for a few years, and then they launched a new brand called H&M and Other Stories, which is a ladies brand. And they were like, listen, we loved, what you've done at H&M. Do you want to come there and help us sort of start that up? So I moved over to there, and then, I was there for, I think, about 6 years. And then alongside that, I got approached to do modeling as well. So I was doing that separately and then working for that ladies fashion brand.
And what do you reckon? So that that period, that sounds like a lot of fun to me. That sounds like a pretty cool job. Like, I can't say I've ever been approached to model, but maybe in another life.
You still got time, brother.
Yeah, well, I don't know. So like, did that in itself bring you different challenges? Because all of a sudden, we're talking about, a bit of yin and yang, a bit of contrast here, aren't we? In terms of, I'm going to go hide in the library because I don't know how to interact with you. The girl's coming to ask me what class to go to. I'm stuttering. Yeah. Now you're propelled into working in central London, working in fashion, joining a label, modelling. How did all that play out, and what was I'm assuming there was kind of different challenges involved.
Yeah, it's a whole different world because, I went from this insecure kid that couldn't even speak to girls to now working for a brand where there's like about 150 of us and 135 of them were women, and then all of a sudden I was getting approached, I was getting attention, you're doing modeling and stuff, and I guess I filled out a bit more, so then I don't know, I became more confident.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because people were liking me for my image, but then they wanted me to be within their spaces. So I went from being on the outside to now being asked to, you're setting this up, like we want to fly you here to do this training, or, we want you for this shoot and stuff like that. It was, I don't know if I've really ever taken it in, to be honest. But all I know is just 1 minute I was a nobody, next minute I'm going to private parties, it was mad. It was mad.
People wanted to know.
Yeah, and I loved it. I loved that feeling of like being accepted, being known. I loved the attention, but I loved it a bit too much towards the end. And I think that's when things started going downhill. Yeah. Yeah.
So to build on that then, so you're reaching a mini peak, you're in the zone and you're enjoying it. And let's be honest, like prestige, power, money, they're all really attractive things. And if you look at the path to success in inverted commas, those things are often involved. And from my own experience, they can be mistaken for the success itself. Yeah. But then, of course, perhaps at that moment you're feeling quite successful in what you're doing. Yeah. But that's not how it played out, because obviously things changed. So success perhaps took on a different meaning for you. So what happened then, and what did you go on to do as a result?
I think what I've learned is that you got to be careful what you build your identity on. Yeah. And I think during that time, I was building my identity around relationships and various opportunities. And in doing that, I started losing who I was. So I went from being shy and, having no confidence and all of that stuff. And I was becoming a bit of an idiot, to be honest. I wasn't treating people right. I was becoming more selfish and all of that stuff. And I think all of it got to my head. And I think because of that, I destroyed a lot of relationships, a lot of friendships. And due to that, a lot of the opportunities that I could have had, I didn't get anymore. And I think that's when I started to sort of see the downfall. Basically, I was becoming someone that I wasn't. I was being molded by my surroundings, but at the core of me, that wasn't who I was. My ambition in life wasn't to become an idiot. Yeah. That was never it. But just due to that, just the environment, going out, drinking all the time, and just all of that stuff, it started to shape me, because my foundation wasn't firm. I hadn't built a strong enough foundation to know who I was. I was still trying to figure out who I was.
Yeah.
And I was just being swayed, and I thought I thought I knew who I was by becoming that guy. But that guy wasn't the guy that I was trying to be.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's from my experience, if you don't tether your actions and intentions to some kind of values and principles, then that tends to be the ultimate result.
Yeah.
And that was like a big thing to realise for me. So what action did you take as a result of all of that? So you went on to do what you do now, I guess.
Yeah.
Or start to do what you do now.
Yeah. So it was a weird situation. Basically, I started feeling quite empty, and I recognized that feeling maybe 6 months prior to what I'm about to tell you about. But I just ignored that feeling. I was like, whatever, maybe the best thing to do to medicate that is to do what I'm doing, but do it more.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
so that's basically what I was doing. So I start feeling empty. Now let me drink more, or let me date more, let me do all of that. But it just kept making me feel more and more empty. And there was one particular night I was in Mayfair. Usually go and grab my drinks, head to the dance floor, and I start shaking the leg, do my thing. But there was one particular night I got the drinks, and I stood by the dance floor, and it's weird. It's almost like the music just stopped. Everyone's having a good time, and I looked around and I just thought, the question that just kept coming to my mind is there more to life than this? Like, surely I can't do this forever. Every Friday and Saturday night, getting absolutely smashed out my face, doing everything else. There's got to be more. So then the following week, I was sitting by my house. I was living in Notting Hill at the time. And I was sitting at a bus stop, just sitting there, like just clearing my head. Then a bus went past, and then on that, there was a poster, and it said something about, have you got questions about life? Try the Alpha course. And I was like, what's this all about? And so my background of like church and faith, I had, a loose background around it. So I understood a few things. But I was sitting at the bus stop, the second bus went past, same poster, and I was like, gosh, this is getting a bit weird. Went back to work next day, coming home on the Central Line, saw that poster again, and I just thought to myself, once, twice, 3 times a lady, it's got to be a sign.
Yeah.
So I went online and I checked out this Alpha course thing, and then I discovered that it was a course for people that wouldn't necessarily call themselves Christians or churchgoers to come and just explore more about faith. And I went and did that, and I think that was the beginning of things starting to change for me.
When you look back on that, what do you think the biggest lesson you extracted from that period of your life was before you started this new period of your life? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest lesson, but a lesson, like what do you think you gleaned from that period? Was it a case of having a structure, or was it a case of realizing that perhaps you weren't in touch with your inner self or humility, or was it something that helps guide you now?
Yeah, I think I gave myself the opportunity to try something new.
Right.
And I think the old Tash would have been fearful. I would have liked to have just stayed in my comfort zone. And I think the lesson that I've learned is sometimes comfort can be your enemy. Because I could have just carried on just doing what I was doing and just enjoying life and whatnot. But going to do that course, I was taking a risk. It was something new for me, but in doing that, I got to connect with so many different people, and I got to explore something beyond what I knew. So I'd say it would be that. Yeah.
So learning to take action even though it's out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, for sure.
And is that something you try and implement today still with things you do?
Yeah. I think more so now than ever before.
Yeah.
Because I do like to, I do like a bit of comfort. It's easier. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I'm starting to realize that you don't grow when you're comfortable.
100%. Yeah.
And you can sort of live life on cruise control, but it will only get you so far. And I just feel like there's just so much to explore in this life. And if we just keep sitting back and chilling, we'll just lose out on experiences, that could better us as people. So,
and it's interesting that the doorway to that truth is opened by things outside of our control.
Yeah.
So that moment started not through choice really, but through a necessity.
Yeah.
Because you're still on the dance floor and you're going, this isn't working.
Yeah.
You know, but the good news is you can open up that conversation now and go, well, actually, even if you haven't got to that point where you need to do it through necessity,
Yeah.
this is a fact.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's a really important fact. So you went to the Alpha course,
Yeah.
and then you obviously took to it, and something stuck, and then what's happened since then?
Yeah. So what happened is I kept going on the course, and I loved it. I got to connect with so many different people. But I'd come back to work, and then basically my manager at the time, she was like, you keep coming back on a Thursday, because it was a Wednesday night. You come back on a Thursday and you're just so full of life. Like, what the heck are you doing on a Wednesday? So I explained to her that I was doing this Alpha course thing. And then she suggested, why don't you think about working for them? And we're sitting in the pub having a drink, and I was thinking, like, are you trying to tell me something? Are you trying to fire me or something? What are you trying to suggest for me to, like, leave? And then in that moment, I was like, oh, I wonder if I could work for them, you know? So I did an internship there just to sort of, like, see what it's like. And then that gave me... It made me realise that actually maybe there is another path for me outside of this sort of, like, fashion industry and creative industry. So anyway, fast forward, I started sort of sensing that maybe I should pursue a career within the church. I know it's sounding crazy because, bro, I went from Mr. Mayfair clubbing, to now saying that I might want to be involved in church. It was baffling.
Yeah.
But the more I went, the more I felt fulfilled.
Yeah.
I felt content. I felt like I was sort of walking in my purpose, you know. And obviously I exhausted all the other options before that in what I was doing before, but I never quite got to that place where I felt like I was walking in my purpose.
Right.
But while I was there, I don't know, man, I felt like my heart was singing when I was there. And that for me, I think, was enough of a sign to tell me that actually I should explore this. So while I'm there, someone said to me, oh, why don't you train to become ordained, to become a minister? And I was like, well, like, steady on that. You're getting a bit too, do you know what I mean? Like, would you want me to be, like, walking around with a dog collar on?
Yeah.
So I said, nah, we're not going to do that. But the more I said no, it's almost like the more I kept feeling like a nudge on my heart. And I was just like, oh no, this is not what... Because, bro, my dream was to work in the fashion industry, make loads of money, get a yellow Lamborghini, move to Sweden, eat some Swedish meatballs and find a Swedish wife and call it a day. That was like my ultimate dream.
It's not a bad dream.
Yeah, bro. So now I was starting to see that life was probably going to go in a complete opposite direction. So I kept saying no, and then I kept feeling that nudge. And then once again, I was at this sort of crossroad, and I just took a risk. I was like, listen, I'm going to try it. If doors close along the way, then this isn't for me. That's fine. I can just go back and start pursuing my career in the fashion stuff. But doors just kept opening. And then 2019, I started my training, and then 3 years later, I'm now ordained. So I'm a priest in the Church of England, which, even if I say that out loud, I don't know who's more surprised, me or God, to be honest.
Yeah. It's the journey. It's a huge journey, you know, and it's in a weird way, it's kind of emotional to even sit here and listen to you say that. I mean, I know you, so obviously there's a bit more of a connection there. But in any event, even hearing the story from the outset of coming and then and pursuing that, and what. So when you entered that period where you went, you know what? Okay, I will start training. What was the biggest fear going into all of that for you?
Once again, am I going to fit into this space?
Yeah.
And am I going to be good enough?
And the fitting in bit, what are you comfortable to elaborate on that?
Yeah, you know, when I came to the church that I'm currently at, the church was diverse, you could say, but the leadership wasn't. And I think for me, it's hard to see yourself in a space when you can't see yourself in that space or anyone that looks like you. So the more I was getting involved in like church life and ministry and stuff, I just kept thinking, is there really a seat at the table for me?
Right.
Because I look different to everyone else.
So it was all white.
Yeah, predominantly white, middle-aged, older men.
Right.
Ex-lawyers, ex-bankers, ex-everything, you know?
Right.
And then there's me, modelling, fashion, you know, clubbing, all that stuff. It's just polar opposites.
Yeah.
So I just kept thinking, like, I'm not going to fit in this space. So that was my main fear. And I think because I was so desperate to fit in, I didn't realise, but I was being shaped by my environment again.
Right.
Yeah. So much so that, like, I remember, I think I was 2 months in, and I remember there was a lady, I'll never forget this, big up Tina. She came and spoke to me, and she said, Tash, like, you do realise you're changing, yeah? You're basically becoming like a middle-aged white man. You do realise that?
Really?
In how you're talking, in how you're dressing. And I was like, wow, geez, I didn't realise that. Because I just wanted to fit in. So I was speaking like everyone else. I was buying Barber jackets. I was buying Ralphie shirts. I was looking the part, you know. I looked like I was from like South Kensington, basically.
Yeah.
That was what I was trying to go for.
Which is where your church is
Which
based.
is where it's based, yeah. But I think when I heard that, I was like, gosh, like, Tash, like, who are you trying to be? And who are you really? You know, once again, it's that thing again, the environment shaping me. So I had to start like pausing and stopping that.
And that fear going in, would you say any of those fears have come true for you, where you're sat here today?
As it pertains to like being an outsider and
being accepted and being good enough.
I do feel accepted today, and I do know that I am good enough. But I didn't think that before, and I think it's taken me a long time to get to that place. And if I'm honest with you, I've probably only got to that place maybe within the last 3 years.
And it's interesting that the fear so often never becomes the truth. That doesn't mean that you don't have a journey with it. It doesn't mean you don't wrestle with it. It doesn't mean that it's not an ongoing part of who you are, because it doesn't get completely eliminated. But it's really important to recognise that, right?
Yeah.
And again, you can apply that to life or professional or career success, whatever that is.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that never became true. Because if you listened to your fear, you wouldn't be sat here saying you're an ordained priest.
Yeah.
That's just a fact.
Yeah. Facts,
I don't know what you'd be doing.
Yeah.
So it's a really important point to reflect on, isn't it? To understand, actually, hold on a minute. You know, uncomfortableness equals growth. You know, fear doesn't equal reality. You know, these things are really kind of powerful to look back on and realise and go, okay.
Yeah.
And then how do you think you are... Do you think the stuff about being an outsider or not being accepted, does it feel like... I mean, you tell me, I don't want to sort of put words in your mouth, but do you think that's... that was... Do you feel like you've been treated that way? Has that been a challenge for you? Do you think you have been treated differently because of where you're from? Or do you think actually that was all from within your own mind? Like, how has that experience been?
No, I think definitely. I've definitely been treated different in different spaces. I think, because the thing is, when you are the minority, there's certain things you may not understand. You know, there's certain experiences you may have not had. So immediately, you have to almost like play catch up.
Right.
And then when you become like the only one of your kind in a particular space as well, then tokenism can come to play. Because we've got that one guy that worked in fashion, or we've got that one black guy. You know, let's get him up to do this, or let's get him up to do that. And in that, you start to see that you're being treated differently to your sort of like other counterparts, and that's a little bit, it's it's not a nice feeling to have and to experience and see. Yeah.
And do you think you've managed to, when you start to observe that and recognise that and have that feeling, do you think, what have you done with that feeling or that fact to help harness what you're doing now? Do you think you've managed to utilise that for something beneficial in some way, or has it just been what it was?
Yeah, I think I have, because I think oftentimes when you are a minority, you end up being the front runner for others. So yes, maybe, you know, tokenism and you know, ill treatment has happened in the past, but actually I'm looking at the long-term goal here. In order for others to have a better experience than I have to go through some things, because you're almost having to like knock down that door. So the reason why everything I've gone through, I appreciate the fact that I've had to have gone through that and been able to grow from that, because now when the next person comes through, they don't have to go through all of the crap I've gone through. And that's really important for me. So now they're not having to like sort of knock a door down. No, the door's open now. And my dream is that others alike, from any sort of form of like diverse background, it doesn't necessarily mean like race and stuff, but anything, they won't have to go through those same struggles. Yeah. And I think that's been the thing that now that I'm on this side, I've almost got the insight of being on the other side. Yeah. And I just want to create sort of equal opportunity for all people.
Again, it's interesting because it's like it's the wealth and the value that sits outside of the wealth and the value. You know,
that's nice. Come on.
But it's because so much of it again is, okay, let's talk about careers, let's talk about how we can succeed, let's talk about how we can push ahead, let's talk about how we can be ambitious. But again, in order to do that, that foundation, that platform needs to be sufficient, and it needs to remain sufficient. And of course, doing things like breaking the cycle in whatever manner you're breaking the cycle, we can apply the same in what we're trying to do here in this office and in this firm around, you know, being more open and more vulnerable to certain challenges, or, you know, to well-being, to mental health, whatever it may be. You know, you've got to evolve. You know, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward, kind of thing. Yeah. So it's just interesting to understand that there's so much more, which will help you feel fulfilled in what you're doing now, right? And help you push forward in what you're doing now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And in this last kind of, and I'm mindful, so it was sort of coming towards the end, but in this last latest chapter of your life, you've had different challenges arise. Yeah. And you, a few years ago, you lost your dad. Yeah. And if you don't mind speaking on it, how did that impact you and your journey?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, when you lose someone, particularly like a family member or someone close, it's a whole different experience altogether. And you know, for me and my experience, I found out that my dad had cancer in the beginning of May 2021, and 4 weeks later he passed away. Wow. And he had cancer since 2017, and he didn't tell anyone. Wow. He kept it to himself, and we found the letter, and that's how we found out. And then 4 weeks later he passed. So everything was normal. Dad was fine. Would see him all the time, you know, chat about football, all of these things. And then all of a sudden, he weren't there no more. And I think it was the first time I had to face something way beyond my control. And it was difficult. Because there were so many different elements at play. Like, how am I feeling about this? How's my sister feeling about this? My older sister, my older brother, my mum. You know, I had to look after everyone. I had to plan a funeral. I'm a man of faith as well, so everyone's looking at me like, how are you dealing with this? You know, you're supposed to be like God's best friend type of vibe. Like, how are you dealing with this? I ain't got the answers for this. I don't know why my dad died. So there's all these different things, and also as well, sometimes as men, we struggle to really talk about like how we feel. Yeah. And it's now I'm in a situation. It's like, who do I talk to about this? Because not everyone's gone through that, you know. So yeah, it was a really, really tough time. And you know, with grief, there's no destination. It's a journey. So I'm still on that journey, you know. But there was things that were helpful that helped me during that season, and there was also things that wasn't so helpful that looking back I realised. Yeah.
And what do you think how do you think it shaped you for good in what you do today?
I think I've been able to connect with people that have gone through similar things. Because one of the things I found is when I lost my dad, it was really hard to. People meant well, but it was hard to really explain how I felt.
Yeah.
When people haven't gone through the same thing. So now there's a few people that have gone through similar things. There's an immediate point of connection, because there's a weakness and a vulnerability that we share, you know. And I think in this life, like we do so much to impress people with our strengths. But I believe that it's through our weaknesses and through our vulnerabilities that we truly connect as humans. And I think that's given me the opportunity to do that, for sure. Also, as well, I think it's just given me a different perspective on life. What matters, what doesn't, what to stress about, and what not to stress about. And I think just even because during that period it was during the pandemic period, I think the world sort of learnt that actually a lot of the things we put our control in, it's a lot of the times it doesn't mean anything, you know. So I think it just gave me a different perspective on life, and I think I think I've grown a lot. It's in a weird way, it's brought my family closer as well. But yeah.
And when you take all of that, everything we just sort of discussed and everything that's happened so far, from your perspective, what do you think are some of the necessary ingredients to implement positive change, whether it be in your life or someone else who hasn't necessarily been through or had to go through those processes? What do you think some of those ingredients would look like?
I think being intentional.
Yeah.
I think when someone has gone through something like that, be intentional to show that you care and you're there to support them. You have to do a lot of listening. I think the danger can be that we as people feel like we know what another person needs, and I think I think taking time to listen is extremely important, because I think in general people often want to feel heard.
Yeah.
You know, and if we talk more and listen less, I think you won't be able to connect with people as well. And I think particularly when it comes to this stuff, I think just being intentional, showing your support as much as you can, and being able to listen and just hear the heart of the person that's going through.
And of course, the principle of listening is that you can apply to everything.
Yeah, you know, facts.
For sure. Even just listening to you say that, even with what we do, you know, we're a people-based business with clients, and actually we've got to sit and listen.
Yeah.
You know, we've all got to do that more.
Yeah.
So in kind of closing, last question, what do you think from all of this journey you've had and all the learnings you have, what are some of the practical tools that you may use today? You know, if every learning is a new tool, what are some of those tools you implement today? And it can be on a, you know, really basic level of, I've got these tasks in your day-to-day tasks as a priest, you know, in your private life. Like, what are some of those tools do you think you now try and implement, or you're conscious of that you weren't before?
I think discipline's a great one. I think I'm a lot more disciplined today than I am before, and I think discipline has routine has enabled discipline for me, and I think in that it has I think in every area, so whether it's relationship with friends, the routine and discipline of doing things enables that thing to flourish. And I think because of that, it also helps me to sort of stay on the right path of what it is that I'm trying to do. So don't get me wrong, like I still sometimes feel anxious. I still sometimes feel like, you know, get like a bit of imposter syndrome and stuff. But I just have to remind myself of who I am.
Yeah.
And my identity, and who I'm not, you know. And I think those constant reminders helps me, because yeah, it's so easy to compare yourself to others and to, you know, think this and think that, but I think that constant reminder of who you are and remembering your identity, and for me, I understand what my identity is in God, and because of that, I live out of that space, and that reminder helps me to not only to love myself, but I think to love others better.
Yeah, the routine one is a really understated kind of mechanism or tool, I think. And I never had an idea that, you know, how do you go about implementing change to a big scale if the way you're living your life isn't what you want, or the way you're doing your job isn't what you want? Well, it starts with the first step, which is an obvious thing to say. But then it's like, how do I take that first step? Well, often we need help or a necessity, standing in the club in Mayfair. And then it's about consistency. Well, how do I be consistent when the next day I don't feel like doing it? Because when I don't feel like doing something, I want to change how I feel in that moment. I don't necessarily have the wisdom to understand the best thing to do is carry on. Well, in that case, all you have to do is worry about it today. And then the next day, and then the next day, and then a day is a month, a year. And then before you know it, it's like what that woman said to you. You know, and then you're going, okay, I've changed, maybe not for the bit, and then you've changed for the bit. You know, and it's just an interesting concept, right? How that basic thing can attach so much value to it, I think, in whatever we do. But yeah,
for sure.
Awesome, man.